Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's great to have all of you here, and hopefully there'll be some more that might join in. It's been 2 weeks since we had our last chat, and also, I guess since then, the AP statistics exam has been given, which was on Friday. I've tried to follow a little bit the discussions on StatMedic and the Facebook AP readers. It's been interesting to see some of the comments. I'm not sure how much we can really talk about in terms of the content of the exams right now. Maybe you could help me with this, but I think College Board has asked that high school teachers keep the exams as secure as possible. Is that correct? And my understanding is that only high school teachers whose students have taken the exams have actually seen the exam. You are seeing your students' exams, and I think College Board has asked you to let your students know if you think there might be a problem with their exams being submitted. Is that correct? So maybe we might start the discussion by, are there any particular challenges that you've had as a teacher trying to access the exams that maybe some other teachers might could help you with? Now, also, I think it's my understanding that students that emailed their exam answers, you can't access those. Is that correct? It's only the ones that uploaded? Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's correct. So any student responses that were emailed won't show up until June 30th, I think.
June 30th.
Wow.
But the AP coordinator at your school can find out if an email was submitted. Because I had an issue where I was only able to see his submission for one answer. So I was concerned. And so she was able to check into it, and they did receive his second question as an email. They were able to tell her that.
I might have to look into that because I have.
Yeah.
So the frustrating thing for me was that in order to get a student's response, you have to download each individual student's file, which is a zip file. And then you have to open it. And then to read the question, you have to find the code that matches that particular question. And in a separate tab or window or whatever, you have to manually enter that code to read that question. Now, I understand if you have 10 to 20 students, that's maybe not that bad, but I have over 100.
Wow. And
so I asked some teachers how long it took them to do, and they said, and then when one woman said, it took me 2 hours. And I said, okay, that's not so bad. She goes, I know, but I only have 18 students. So what I figured out was that you can download the rosters and you can see how many files are attached. And so if a student had 2 files, I just went like this and hoped those were okay. And for the students who had one or none, I had asked them if they'd had any problems, did they email their responses? And I think every kid that said that they emailed their responses, they did have one missing. So, I'm hoping that means that they received that email. I wish there was a way for them to confirm that they received the emails, because one kid told me even this morning that he never received a confirmation that it was received. So it's frustrating. It's very frustrating because I really don't have the time to kind of inspect these things.
So when is the makeup date for the students to take the exam?
Next Thursday.
Next Thursday.
That's the pre-scheduled makeup, but now they're offering an exception test at the end of June.
At the end of June.
For kids who were having these technology problems. They can, starting on June 1st, they can apply for a exception test, they're calling it, and they can take that.
That's June 22nd for stat.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when will a student know for certain if a complete exam was not received at College Board?
They won't, not until the grades come in. I'm sorry, I just got here late, so but I think I understand what Amy was saying. I had 2 students that their first question went through, but their second didn't, and they had the thing that they could email it. And when I went through my responses, I had their first question, but no second. And I asked them to send me all the correspondence from College Board. And it was very almost like a legal document. If you did this, and if this was so, and if that was so, and if you didn't do this, then we'll grade it. So you have no idea if they're grading it or not. And we had our AP coordinator try to call, and she spent 2 days. And then finally, after being on hold for a long time, got someone, and they said, we have no way we can't look it up whether that kid's question got through.
I guess if there's any doubt, they should just apply for that exception test starting Monday.
And then the other confusion my students had was if they didn't take the test last week, did they actively have to sign up for the makeup? That was one thing that we didn't know. And so I said, well, I think today is the day that they're going to get information. And I said, if you don't get anything today.
That was actually stated ahead of time that if they if they were signed up for the test and did not submit anything, they would automatically be given the makeup. That was announced ahead of time.
Yeah, I think that's true because I spoke to our AP coordinator today, and she had sent me an email with 4 kids' names for the makeup date. And I said, they're the 4 kids that opted out. Did they all of a sudden decide to take it? And she said, oh, no, if you didn't take the first one, you were just automatically put on.
Right.
I wish I had that list because I had maybe 10 kids who they weren't quite sure. It's been very frustrating because it's been kind of a revolving door of information, and what you think is clear then all of a sudden isn't clear, and so it's been frustrating. But talking about the questions, I did like the questions that I had a couple that I looked through, and I thought they were very clever, and I thought they were very good, and my students seemed to think they were very reasonable. And they kept saying like, oh, I wasn't sure if I said enough, but that's what they always say. So I don't think it was like the AP bio exam where kids didn't even know what it was asking. So that's good.
Did students seem to feel like they had enough time to answer the questions? Did you get a sense from your students about the time?
Most of them said that was the only issue, was time. Although when I looked at their answers, they all pretty much answered every part, but I think they felt rushed.
Yeah, mine said they felt rushed through the through the longer question, but the second one went much better for them. And part of that might have been the anxiety of, can I actually upload it and do all those other things? And maybe once you get it done once, you just feel a little bit more confident.
So what are some other reactions that, or other concerns, challenges? I know one thing that I've been reading a lot is teachers have looked at some of their student answers, and especially the ones with, maybe that were emailed, or the PDFs that they feel like maybe the quality is not high. I mean, we all know that at the readings, there's students with maybe handwriting that's not the best in the world, that's hard to read. There's concern that some of the PDF quality is low, and how much are readers going to be expected to try to figure out student answers? Has that topic come up, or have you had any discussions about that? Have you noticed that the quality of the PDFs might be not as high as you would like, or?
Yeah, I did for one of my students. It's really vague. Like it's, you have to, I can hardly read it when I printed it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But for most of them, it's okay.
That's good. So any other thoughts that you might feel like you can share about the exam? I haven't heard any official date from College Board, but I'm suspecting that these exams are not going to be really public until possibly people start reading the exams in terms of, say, for example, college people that may be able to start seeing the exams. Does anyone have any information on that? I guess not.
Yeah, I thought it said they weren't going to be released at all, though.
See, I did not know. I haven't heard personally whether they'll be released or whether it will just be high school teachers and those people participating in the reading that get to see them officially.
I think that's correct. Ruth, I think what I recall them saying is that the questions would become a part of the test bank, but would never be available on the College Board site, AP Central, like previous year's exams. Does that sound right, what you remember, Ruth?
Yeah, because also they said we weren't actually allowed to share the questions with our students or anybody else. We could answer their questions about how they did, but we couldn't actually share the questions with them.
Mm-hmm.
I was just going to say what Donna's saying here, that I had 62 kids take the test, and I had 20 versions of question 1 and 21 versions of question 2. And then from what I understand from the kids, I don't know how they know, but that even if they had the same version, the parts were scrambled.
Wow.
So there were so many different versions out there, it would probably be hard for them to post them all, the versions. And there were at least—
Well, you'd also run into kids complaining that one was easier than another or harder than another and not understanding the equating. And yes, that's probably going to be true, but that's what the whole equating process is always about. And the kids are not going to be aware of how that works or et cetera. And so I think it could just create more problems to release them than it would solve.
Something I noticed when I was looking through them is that even if the context was the same and then there were graphical displays, the graphical displays were different.
Wow.
sometimes the numbers were different. Like it was a sample of 500 versus a sample of, one was 500 and 500 was like a problem about motion. And then another version was 320 and 410 or something like that. They changed numbers and
right.
grades.
I'm so glad I'm no longer on the test development committee. They must have had a really rough spring trying to put all this together.
Oh, yeah. And I think they did an admirable job. I think that's very clever just to make those kinds of changes. It's the kind of changes we all make to get different forms of our exams. And so I was kind of impressed that that's what they did, that was their solution, or at least part of their solution to the cheating issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was very clever.
Based on what you saw with your students' exams, as teachers, how did you feel about the AP content being covered with 2 questions? I was just curious to hear your thoughts on using 2 free response questions to try to test most of the AP content as opposed to the traditional form of the exam. Just global thoughts.
Well, I think that given the constraints of 45 minutes, which is a really, really big constraint, I mean, I think we all know that if we had more time, we could do a better job of assessing the entirety of the course. But I do think that given the constraints that we had, that the questions really did a good job of spanning from the beginning of the course to the end of the at least the curriculum that we covered for this particular year. Taking kids all the way up through inference. So I think given the constraints, it was very well done.
Yeah, I agree with Luke. And I also really liked that they had, you know, like a graph to talk about, and then maybe some data to think about, and then a scenario and some explanations. I mean, it really, I thought the question, you know, and again, I didn't look at all of them, but the questions definitely went from, you know, unit 1 to unit 6. Is that what we're calling it these days? And kind of connected everything together and talking about experiments and samples and, you know, why, having kids explain why you would do things. I thought that was very nice. And it happens to be like what I would stress. So I certainly liked it.
I did see one question that I thought I could have more easily asked if I could answered, if I could have drawn a diagram. So for a student who chose to type and then they couldn't draw a diagram, I'll be interested to read their many varied ways of answering that question.
So it sounds like, based on what you've just said, that most of you feel like it was a equitable exam. You know, it wasn't unreasonable. Questions weren't out of reach for the students. Excellent.
No, I thought the questions were very approachable, and I can see a lot of different kids demonstrating understanding on the questions, which I appreciated. The one thing I missed, well, there were a lot of things I missed, but I really missed that my students had the opportunity to have an investigative task. That has always been, in my opinion, something that really helps set apart kids who really understand. And not having that ability, I'm just curious how that's going to work this year, because if you think about it, even if they do EP and I for each part, and there's 11 parts, that's still not a lot of variability between the kids. And so, you know, I'm just curious statistically even how that's going to happen. But I'm going to miss having that opportunity to have that discussion of an investigative task. I think that, but I did enjoy having like no calculator needed really. I mean, I know there were some questions about probability, but you know, I just am so ready to get rid of this graphing calculator. So having the ability for kids to not have to use it was very nice. I thought that was a really good aspect of this test, and I would like to see more of that.
So Amy, it sounds like maybe from what you've said that there was a lot of conceptual understanding that was assessed on this test as opposed to needing the mechanics.
I just don't think the busy work is worth a test time. So like I don't ever have my students do data entry during a test. I think that's a waste of test time. If I did give my students data sets, I would always allow them to enter it beforehand, but usually I just gave them the summary stuff and let them work with that. I don't find that if you're doing a time test, I don't think that's a good use of the time.
I mean, also given the fact that either calculators do everything, give them the confidence interval, the p-value, all that, I thought it was much better, the interpretation part. And, you know, because most of them can figure out these are the buttons I need to push right now and come up with something. But as we've seen in the past, lots of them have trouble interpreting what exactly this means. So yeah, I think that in itself will be enough of a separator. Kids that really don't understand what the different things mean will really have trouble.
The only thing I see about having them actually do especially tests and intervals on their calculators is one of the biggest issues kids have is not how to interpret it once they've got it. What is this? What do I use? And is this a match pair? Is this a 2 sample? That type of thing. And as a college person now, I haven't seen the questions to know if they did it like way back in '97 when they that very first question on the baking computer chips, they gave them both the 2 sample and the matched pair results, and they had to decide which one to use. And I don't know if they did something like that here, but that's the biggest problem I see kids, or one of the biggest problems I see kids having with inference is, what do I use? What is this? Is this an interval? Is this a hypothesis test? And if so, which one? And then once they make that decision, which one is it? And I don't know how well the test covered that if you give them all the results.
So I hear recognizing the design of the study
Yes,
as part of the question.
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do have one concern, and although, you know, I really like the questions that are more concept and what does this mean, I worry that if College Board decides to not make technology a requirement, then those schools that would not have put technology in the hands of their kids, and there are a lot of them that would not have made it a priority,
Yes.
those kids that are underserved will be even more underserved. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, I want them to be able to explain things, but that's after lots of time playing with real data and having the technology to play with the real data, you know, in the class time. Certainly I agree with Amy on a test. You know, I'm not going to have them waste time inputting data, but they've had tons of experience with it and collecting data and doing projects. And I feel like the most underrepresented kids, a lot of those schools, you know, kind of make sure they do something because they have to. And I worry about that part.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. A very good point. If it's not part of the audit, saying that my students will have access to this type of technology, there are quite a few schools that would not make that effort. And I understand, you know, if finances are tough, that's something they feel can go if it's not a requirement.
So I thought I'd throw in a hypothetical question. Now that we've discussed, you've seen the format of this year's exam and the type of questions that they ask on this year's exam, do you think this might actually influence modification to future AP Stat exams that are given in the more traditional way?
So I'm just going off of memory. I'm not sitting here looking at any questions or anything, but most of the questions appear to me to be similar to things that they've asked in the past. So I feel like there's not going to be too much modification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it seems like if you go from the beginning onward, the multiple choice went from being, you know, calculations to much more questions like this, where they would have to pick the right response.
Well, that's partially though because the original test was written before there was before the TIE
Sure,
hit the market.
yeah.
And they thought the kids would be doing this all by hand, and they wanted them, you know, they wanted the kids to be able to do some understand the calculations. Well, then the 83 hit the market, and an exam was supposed to take an hour and a half, 35 questions, ended up taking about 25 minutes.
I mean, I think the most interesting thing to watch is not so much the content or the type of questions, but whether they decide to keep both the exam and the reading as virtual.
Mm-hmm.
That because I think, you know, College Board for a long time has been, you know, hinting at the idea of the readings becoming, you know, not an event where everybody gets together, which we all know and love, but it'll be interesting to see how the distributed reading goes this year, and if it goes well, whether they take that as if that becomes the new
Well, Trevor claimed in his announcements that they can't wait to get back to the in-person readings. That was his claim.
I was just I've heard lots of claims from the College Board. We'll see.
I know. But I think they may be aware that they would lose an awful lot of us readers if they went to strictly virtual, other than in an emergency situation. I mean, I wouldn't bother with it.
But there are always others to take our place.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think it'll be interesting. I hope, I'm not going to be a distributed reader, but I hope that those that do, I mean, and maybe it'll be a good experience, but they often do that survey afterwards.
Yes, and they're doing that.
Encourage everybody to, to let them know whether they think that that's for them, whether that's a viable option moving forward.
Yeah, they've already sent out a, in one of the emails that the College Board gift, like last year, will only be available after they send you the survey and you return the survey.
Oh, I
They had
missed
such
that.
low response on the survey in past years.
I think I missed that, Lee.
Oh yeah, that
I
came
did.
out. You'll only get your gift like last
missed
year
it.
if you when the survey comes, you fill it out and submit it, and then you'll get the code to get into the page. The page and the code to get in to order your gift, and then they'll be mailed out in July, I think they said.
Because we all treasure those gifts.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, last year's I got a very nice little mini cooler that holds a 6-pack, and I've been using it when I go on picnics during this little pandemic situation.
Oh, we've got one
One of
here.
the better one.
Yeah.
That's it. I have one. That's exactly what I have.
I'm nervous for the readers that are doing it the first time this year. I know 3 of them, and they are besides themselves. They're excited, but they're like, I don't even want to count this as my first year because it's going to be weird.
It's going to be very weird. And I've heard rumors of, I don't know, Ruth or anybody can confirm, somewhere around 1,200.
I heard 1,500, so.
Well, up to 1,500.
Yeah. That's
Well,
what I
1,200
thought I heard also.
Well, 1,200, they said they were short, so maybe they are shooting for 1,500. And that's quite a jump from the 900 we've been having lately.
Yeah.
But
and who's going to be my table partner? Like, who's going to?
I don't know if we have partners. That's one of the things that's going to be the hardest about the reading, is not having a partner to bounce stuff off of.
I also heard they were asking folks if they would be willing to read more than 35 hours.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they sent us a survey. Would we be willing to work longer hours before the exam, after the exam?
Yeah, I think it even said up to 50 hours per week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll still be working, so I don't know. I don't know how that's going to happen.
Well, it's especially hard for West Coast people because for us, it opens at 3 o'clock in the morning and closes at 7 p.m. I'm not a 3 o'clock in the morning get up and grade papers person. I'm sometimes going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning, not getting up. And so it really puts West Coast people, and I'm sure even and Hawaii is even worse, at a total disadvantage.
I thought it was 11 to 4 Eastern time.
No, that's the time the table leaders have to work.
Table leaders are work, but the other is open 10 to 10, Lee.
East Coast time.
Right.
Put that on
wouldn't
West
that be
Coast time.
7 a.m., not 3 a.m.? Or am I miscalculating?
The 10 to 10 is the training day. The other days are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. The reading days are 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time, which is 3 a.m. to 7 p.m. for West Coast, which is just horrendous because my most productive time of day is 10 p.m. to about 1. And that's not in the window.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after this year. I know that some other subjects have gradually been moving to online scoring. So, there's also
Haven't most of them been hybrid, not strictly online?
I think so. I think some hybrid and some online.
I think the only one that's strictly online is
it Computer Principles?
Computer Principles, and I think even they have something that's done in person, but Computer Principles but that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
They have to sit at computers if they're there.
No, they've had Computer Principle grading and at KC the same time we've been grading, but they've been standing and grading on computers.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So they're kind of in person, but they're actually scoring on computers.
Right. And my daughter grades A push. And there was the year she had, or she was, I guess the year she was 8 months pregnant, she decided rather than try and fly to the reading, she would do an online. And it was, she said it was so convoluted, she could never get the system working properly.
Mm.
And so the year after her daughter was born, she went back to the reading. Now she'll be doing the distributed this year because that's all anybody's doing, but
Right.
hoping it works better than it did the last time.
Well, as Roxy has said, College Board has been talking about moving to more online for many years.
Oh, I know. And every year that's one of the questions on the survey is, would you be willing? And I straight out say no.
Yeah, they did a test way back when we were in Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
They did I don't know if any of you participated in that, but they took one of our reading rooms over off to the dorms for 2 days, and they had scanned some exams, and had them grade online scanning. So they've been testing it since, for 20 years now, kind of off and on.
Well, they were still talking about it when we were in Louisville as well, so I can verify that. So it's the discussion has been around for a long time.
Well, I'm sure it's much less expensive for them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's going to come down to how efficient everybody is at reading.
Yeah. But it certainly takes away the, and it's not just the camaraderie. I mean, it is really a staff development. The to me, the reading is as much staff development as it is fun. And I'm not sure how much of that you get when you're in a distributed online, format.
Well, if we're in remote teaching in the fall, maybe it will be really helpful.
Well, yeah, there is that part.
Has anyone heard whether the exam will be read by one person or by, like a question, will it be read by one or by two readers?
They're saying two.
Two readers?
Two readers.
Then and then is the role of the table leader to resolve any conflicts, or what has
We don't know yet.
the table
We
leader?
haven't heard.
We haven't.
I've
been
wondered
given any
that myself, because
information.
I think back to that first year when we did question 6 twice.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did is they took they needed to do it twice because they changed the rubric in the middle, which was sort of fun. But the kids got the average of the 2 scores.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they're looking at doing something like that and only having the table leader get involved if they differ by more than a certain amount or something like that. They have not told us that yet.
But I assume that the table leaders online will still be doing traditional back checking as well.
Yeah, I mean, we will have a group of readers. I asked that, and they said 10 to 12, but some rooms, depending on how experienced the table leader, possibly could have maybe up to 20.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, but 10 to 12. So I guess it's going to be similar in that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine that they'll end up doing a lot of reconciling if the 2 scores on the same paper are different.
And I wonder also if maybe during the table leader training, they'll take some input about partnering and, whether we feel like it would be beneficial.
You think? I cannot imagine someone being a new reader and this being their experience. I mean, that has got to be will the new readers have a separate training than well, I guess everybody's doing training on their own time, right?
Yeah.
There's no group anything. So, I mean, we haven't even gotten any details on that yet, but I cannot imagine.
I guess I would hope that the new readers, since the table leaders have to be on 11 to 4 Eastern, they would try to make that, when they're grading, so that their table leaders always there for them.
If they can, if they're still in school, or if they have another job or whatever, that those hours may or may not work.
Yeah, true.
I know you have to check in, but you could check in at 8, or you could check in at 1, and that would be right at the 2 extremes, and not spend much time on during the rest of the time. I know a couple of the days assuming it makes, I won't be able to spend much more than a few minutes on during those hours because I've got an online AP Summer Institute scheduled between 12 and 3 East Coast time, 9 and 12 California time. Assuming it makes. Nobody knows.
Well, hopefully all these questions can be answered by the end of June, right?
You think?
We could have another, let's get the answers to all these questions at the end of June chat.
Yeah.
I think we definitely should have an end of June chat just to talk about how the reading went.
I do too. And I'm very,
an
very
excellent idea.
curious to hear how it went. So,
So I have a question, if it's okay to change the topic.
I was just going to say, Roxy, I know you have a question, so I'm turning it over to you.
Yeah, so every year, for the last many years, we've done a Beyond AP Statistics session at the Joint Statistics meeting as it moves around, where we have 4 speakers. It's a one-day thing, and we invite AP teachers to the Joint Statistics meetings, and we do topics that are just beyond the AP curriculum, and we do it as kind of professional development for experienced teachers. And so this year, of course, the Joint Statistics meetings have moved to are not going to be held in person, unfortunately, in Ruth's neck of the woods. That
I know, I'm so disappointed.
Yeah. So we aren't going to be holding BAPS in Philadelphia. And we had actually partnered with NCTM for the October NCTM meeting, thinking that that's actually maybe even a better forum for BAPS.
That's out the window.
And so then just yesterday and the day before, we've now found that the October NCTM meeting is going to be postponed, which I guess that means they're just going to keep the same program. But anyway, it's going to be postponed until April of next year. So it'll still be in St. Louis, but postponed a year. So what we're trying to decide is whether we just give up on BAPS for this year, or whether we try and do it in an online Zoom kind of format, which then doesn't have to be tied to any one of the meetings. I know the meeting within a meeting for K-12 teachers is going to try an online thing in July. July. And the one that we were going to do for 2-year college faculty, which was going to be the very first time ever, is now going to do it online in June. And so assuming that those 2 go okay and aren't disasters, my question would be, do you think there would be enough interest from experienced AP teachers to support an online BAPS type session, day or 2 half days, or even just
Very definitely
4 sessions scattered, maybe just a sequence of sessions. So
I think breaking it up, if it's online, is a good idea because I think I've only done one in person when the joint meeting was in San Diego, again, close to me. And I would love to attend another one, but I think 8 hours solid is a little nuts. So I think breaking it into minimum 2, as many as 4 is I'd like to keep it within a week, just to make it. Oh, I suppose we could even do. Anyway, I think it's a great idea, and I'd love to see that continue, because I think it's a wonderful experience and training for people who've not attended.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone to several, and they were just so fundamental in kind of helping me get to another level of understanding with things. And I think there'll be great interest. My only worry is if by that time people are like online, Zoomed everything out, that they can't bear to do another online thing.
Yeah, so yeah, and certainly if it was Zoom, we wouldn't do an all-day thing. All-day Zoom things are deadly. Even half-day ones are a stretch, although we're doing some PD workshops that way. But timing-wise, would it be better to have it in the summer? And when do people start up? I know everybody's that's an unknown, and some people are talking about starting early, some people are talking about starting late. What would you consider optimal summer timing? July, August? Don't care. For Lee, we'd hold it at 3 a.m. Pacific time.
Thank you. Well, the nice thing about it is it can always be recorded, so that if people can't attend whatever they're scheduled, they can always go back in and see them, which I think is one of the advantages of something, that we're getting out of this. And I think something that may actually change in a way a lot of meetings and things are done in the future is if we can record things and make them available to people who can't attend at the scheduled time. I think that's an advantage.
Thanks. I see some people putting stuff in the chat.
Yeah, I was going to say there's things
so
in the
it's good,
chat.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like July.
Yeah.
To
late
early
July.
August.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I will try and speak. I've got my, it's actually probably easier to line up speakers. I mean, one of the problems I have is with the joint statistics meetings is my speakers are already there, but they're also all, busy with other things during the meeting. And so taking it outside the joint statistics meetings, and then for me, it means I don't have to give up a full day of the joint statistics meetings to do
right
apps too. So let me check. I'll check in with my speakers. If you have a second in the chat window, if there are specific topics that you'd like to see, we've done a whole variety of topics, but it's usually something that's tied to something in the AP curriculum, but just beyond. So we've done ANOVA, we've done multiple regression, logistics regression, more complicated, more sophisticated sampling schemes. We were going to try a data science one at the NCTM meeting in October. If there are specific topics that you'd like to see, you could either type some in the chat window or email me. It's just, I'll put my email in the chat window. And I can think about that as I try and line up speakers.
I would almost like to see kind of a rehash of all those topics, since most of us were not able to attend all of them. Do one on multiple regression, one on ANOVA, one on, maybe, 4 or 5.
That's what we do. We usually we do 4 hour, and typically it's 4 different topics, each one an hour and a half.
Okay.
When we do a BAPS, so we have a lot of flexibility, and we're not really, if we're
seeing
doing
those
it,
repeated.
Yeah.
Because most of us have not been able to attend anywhere near all of them.
Okay. I like Donna's comment. Donna's chat says, can you just make sure that Alan presents so that I can hear him speak?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that was one of my thoughts about the reading. Are we going to have a professional night speaker? So one thing I haven't heard anybody mention on any of our Facebook or other discussions that we've had. They're talking about making sure we have the best practices and the fun run, but I haven't heard anything from ETS/College Board about a professional night. And some of those have been quite wonderful. And I would love to see, if anything, it would be cheaper for the College Board to do it that way. You just have to pay them an honorarium. You don't have to fly them any place. Buy them a shirt and buy them a shirt, pay an honorarium, you're done.
So,
Ruth, have you heard anything on that?
No.
Okay.
I just want to see the acorn skit.
Yes. There's actually even been talk about that. How are they going to do an acorn skit? Yes. That has even been discussed.
Okay, so I'm seeing some good topics in the chat window, so that's good, and suggestions for speakers as well. So, okay, well, I'll see what I can put together, and we'll make sure we'll publicize it through the AP discussion group, and also through this group, and then you can also distribute it. We tend to suggest that it's not for brand new teachers of AP statistics, because we are doing the beyond, topics beyond, but great.
While Roxy has mentioned BABS, maybe I should go ahead and take this opportunity to also mention the meeting within a meeting. Roxy mentioned that we're going to have that in July. I think the dates we've settled upon are the week of July 20th through the 24th, and it's also going to be virtual. We're tentatively planning on maybe 2 hours a day. There will be both a middle school and a high school for breakout rooms. Some of the high school topics you as AP Stat teachers, I think, might be very interested in considering. We will have some data science topics, but we'll also have material topics from the new GAZE 2 that's coming out. Some very nice, just nice examples and new material. And maybe you might know some teachers or yourself might be interested in some of the middle school topics as well. So we'll be sure and advertise all of that here in the K-12 community so that you can consider signing up for that, or maybe some of your teacher colleagues would be interested in the
Is that something that would be user-friendly for new AP Stat teachers? Or
I think it would be excellent for new AP Stat teachers.
okay, if I could get that information so we can
Yes.
publicize it in our APSEs, that would be terrific.
Yes, I think it would be a great place for the new AP Stat teachers to come as well.
Okay.
We often have, at JSM, we have the high school meeting within a meeting, typically on Tuesday, with BAPS on Wednesday, so that, and they kind of recommend that if high school teachers that are interested that also teach AP do the high school, do the meeting within a meeting one day and then the BAPS the next day.
And also some of the teachers that come for the first day at meeting within a meeting elect to go to the middle school group and join with them on the second day, because they like to get a good sense of that vertical alignment that we need in teaching statistics from middle school to high school. So there will be lots of options for teachers that they can consider between the workshops. And we're doing this in conjunction with NCTM as well. So I'm really looking forward to this new opportunity to do things virtually and also to collaborate with NCTM on this.
Roxy, I was thinking about the blog that Alan's been doing, Ask Good Questions. And there's been so much data and things on COVID-19, and I've been trying to put stuff together, like kind of starting the year with just looking at things, but I was thinking of taking the tact that Alan did, and maybe he could do something on that, like just headlines, things, graphs. Okay, what questions, what do you know about this? What questions should you be asking about this? You know, I've just been thinking a lot about his blog and what he does, and, you know, and starting to feel like if I don't do anything else with my kids, if I get them to ask good questions, then maybe I will have had some measure of success.
Yeah. Now the New York Times, who works with ASA on that, what's going on with this graph, they put together actually a collection of graphs and other things for teaching using COVID as an example.
Yeah, I've used those, and they've been the best discussions we've had in class. You know, I've taken them and put my kids in breakout groups, and even kids that never get involved or never speak up, we had just such great things. And I guess I was thinking more about it because we had our Mu Alpha Theta, our National Math Honor Society induction virtually. And one of my colleagues, her brother teaches stats at Harvard, and so he was our guest speaker. And he did a really nice job, and that was part of maybe, you know, I tried to find the data, like I'm not really good at mining data at all, but he did graphs on red states versus blue states, and then, like, you know, just putting them up there, and then, okay, so it looks like if you're in this type of state, does that mean that, you know, if you're liberal, you're going to get the virus? And, you know, okay, what kind of questions should we be asking? And then even when you break it down by population density, there's more things to break down by. And I just felt like it was, the kids' interests will be there. And like, it's such a treasure trove to jump off to a good start of everything's about asking the right questions.
Yeah, and there's lots of opportunities for multivariate. I mean, a lot of those things.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and have that like as a springboard to go from there. Right.
Of course, I'm using the graph from Chris's governor as one of the icebreaker activities in a workshop I'm doing for two-year college teachers. I assume you all saw the nice graph from Georgia to show their decline, where they put the they reordered the access,
dates,
the
the
access
dates.
time. They just put them all in different order date-wise. And then, but my favorite, I only decided to use that when they put out the response after they got so much flack about reordering the time scale, was the official comment was, well, it was accurate, but displayed in a way different than people expected. And so that's my favorite comment. I had to take a picture of that off it was on my TV screen from CNN. I had to pause it and take a photo of that just so that I would have the official response. So thank you, Chris. I know you're frustrated.
What can I say?
But thank you for providing us with such good examples.
Actually, I'm thinking very seriously about sending the governor ASA's official response, well, the statement that the board of directors has just come out with, that's at the ASA website, about government experts and how we should utilize government experts. And one of the things in the statement is about data visualizations. Mm-hmm. And how we need to rely on experts for data visualizations. So I'm thinking about sending that to my governor.
But he thinks what he's doing is accurate, so it probably won't. He probably.
I know. What can I say?
Because not only it was a little bar chart for each date, and not only did they reorder the dates, they reordered the categories within each bar chart for some of them, so it wasn't always the same. Category. I figured that's just probably
they made it so that it was always declining.
It was declining. Roxy knows my date.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Well, Roxy, I'm glad we could help you out on the West Coast here in Georgia. Any other thoughts, topics you want to bring up today?
Chris, where can I find that statement?
Oh yes, I can actually. Let's see. I can post it on the chat. How's that?
I'd appreciate that because I went on this. I kind of tried looking for it and got nowhere.
It is an excellent statement from the ASA board.
Perfect. I would like to see that and save it.
Let me find it.
I have a question for everyone. So like for the incoming school year, I don't know how this is gonna pan out. So if we're gonna do like hybrid or, full distance or something like that, but like I do a lot of labs. So like edible statistics, to collect data no matter where I am in the curriculum. So especially for inferences, I always introduce it with edible stats. So I keep my kids interested because they always want to do that. But like now that we are not going to be in the same place, thinking about that, do you guys have ideas how to, we always do create the graphs together. So they put up their graphs or their dots on the board so we can see how the distribution looks like. And so we can talk about it and the variance, stuff like that. So now that we're possibly going to be doing hybrid, some kids might not be in school, some kids will be in school, or everybody's going to be online. Do you guys have ideas how to kind of mimic that environment?
Mary Beth, I've been thinking about that a lot too. And because also I do similar, and I was thinking of trying to lay out what I needed and, keep it as minimal cost as possible. And then maybe either ask the school or parents, could you provide, it's sort of like stats in a box. And anybody that couldn't, I would just send them a stats in a box with Post-it notes on it that don't eat this until after this date, or, because like you, I don't want to give up that part of it. I
agree.
And it's the part that they remember. It's like, oh yeah, right, we did that with Skittles, or oh yeah, we did that with M&Ms, or
our chocolate chip cookies.
Right, exactly. And it sticks in their mind better, and it just is pleasant. They like to eat snacks. So yeah, I was thinking of doing a stats in a box and trying to spend some time this summer thinking, okay, these are the ones I have to do, and then putting that together.
And at the same time, I'm looking for activities that will help get a lot of the same points across, but have other ways of collecting data that we can do remotely and everybody put their data. I assume, I'm not a giant Google fan, but it looks like Google Forms and all those things are some of the best ways we've got to collect data if everybody's doing it remotely. And
Yeah, for the workshop that we're doing, not next week, but the week after, with two-year college faculty, we're sending them a supply list. You know, again, not anything that, you know, exotic or hard to come by, but just asking them to have these things. We're sending them some things ahead of time that they need to print out and maybe cut up, you know, if we're doing something with randomization. And then we're having them do some of the data collection parts in between our sessions. So we're saying, you know, part of their homework assignment is to, you know, open up your bag of M&Ms and inspect them just and count how many defects, you know, how many defects there are, and then to use a Google form to put their data in by, you know, 10 p.m. the night before, so that then when we get together the next
That's a
day,
great idea.
we can, you know, so it also doesn't, you know, we're also sending them to breakout rooms for some activities, you know, to, but to where they do the data collection part on their own before, and then bring their numbers, you know, to the breakout room, and then they can still do the group activity if you have that kind of if you have the in-persons, or not in person, but this kind of interaction, if it's not totally asynchronous. But yeah, it's interesting to think about how to take some of those things that we cherish. And this whole workshop in 2 weeks is supposed to be about active learning. and you know, so you think, okay, so you know, what I usually do in an in-person workshop is not it has to be really completely rethought. But then in a way, it may be what they need for the fall anyway, because if you want them to do activities and they're in this kind of environment, then, you know, modeling how it might be done.
Yeah, it's better for them to experience it themselves.
Yeah.
And one of the platforms, and I don't know if it's a Google thing or not, but they have something that's like called Jamboard, Jamboard. Like you can send the kids off into a breakout room, and each breakout room, I think you can get like 20, there's like a whiteboard essentially. And you can get like 20 of them in a session. Each breakout room would have their own Jamboard, and the kids can share their data and create whatever graph or display it is that they want in that, and then come back, and you could almost do like a gallery walk, because once you come back to the large room, you can go through every one of those boards, and the kids can see the work. So unfortunately, I love the idea of Jamboard, but we're a Google school, and I don't know if I'm allowed to use Zoom, which has breakout rooms, as opposed to a Google Meet, which doesn't. But I mean, the Jamboard's awesome. I think even in person, if we have to have our 6 feet apart, I can still do collaborative work in an environment where kids have to be spaced apart too. So that would be something to look into. I think there's also something that's called like whiteboard.mi. And I forget what the other ones are, but I know
Whiteboard, is that for teams?
I'm not 100% sure. That one's just one that I saw somebody brought up. I did like an online PD for the Jamboard, and somebody threw that into the chat, and I wrote it down. I never got to investigate the whiteboard part.
I
Zoom has whiteboards built in.
There we go.
Okay with being a Google school, because I know one of the summer institutes I do is for UCLA, and I mean, even our email addresses through UCLA, our Google email, and we're using our summer institutes. We're told to use Zoom.
And Zoom has whiteboards, but I'm not sure it has. I'll have to check out the Jamboard, because it sounds like there might be something.
Yeah, Jamboard's part of the Google suite, so.
Okay. Interesting.
Well, it's 4 o'clock, and trying to be respectful of everybody's time. When would you like to meet again? I think we've all decided we'd like to meet sometime after the reading is over. Would you like to try to meet before then, or should we try to wait until after the reading?
I wouldn't mind meeting once before then and spending some time talking about what we just, this last topic we were on, which is doing activities and things in an online format, if that's what we're going to end up doing next year, because I think that's going to take some planning and advance work for all of us. And so I wouldn't mind meeting between, you know, I'd say maybe 4 weeks from now, do the one after the reading, And 2 weeks from now, if we could do one where we talked more about, you know, how to
Roxy?
deal with this stuff, online
When-
activity.
When does your
Isn't that
work,
when you're in the reading?
Oh,
That's
hang
the-
on, let me check.
that's what I,
No, we don't start the reading till the 18th. So 2 weeks from now is
The 11th? The
Yeah, that-
11th is in 2 weeks.
Roxy, when is your workshop with the,
Oh,
team?
the 8th through the 12th. But I think table leaders and stuff are kind of busy between now and then.
Yeah. So I
So
think,
I,
so sooner rather than later.
or later rather than sooner.
right.
Yeah, one thing I thought about is maybe Roxy, if you wouldn't mind, after the experience of your workshop with the 2-year college folks, you could be part of the conversation to let us know how trying to carry out the hands-on activities remotely went, some of your experiences.
Yeah, I would like that, Roxy.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I want to go to your workshop. How do I go? How do I do that? I want to crash.
Well, this is actually,
Come on, I've crashed your workshops before.
well, this is a closed one, but funded by the Central Valley Higher Education Council. So it's just for the institutions that are part of this higher ed council too. And actually there's some 4-year for Cal State Fresno and Cal State Bakersfield, but email, let me know the next time I talk that they did get some funding from the chancellor's office for the 2-year colleges in California to continue funding the workshops through the year. And we've always done them in person, but if we continue to do them online, my guess is that there'll be more, that they won't be restricting to California colleges or whatever. So yeah, so I'll let you know what I know next time we talk. But
So when does the reading start? The 18th?
18th is the training day, and it goes to the 24th, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know this.
I know table leaders start on the 15th,
The 15th.
and I don't know.
I think some start earlier than that.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I start on the 15th.
But if we did the 11th, that would be before.
yeah, I'm in my workshop on the 11th.
You're in your workshop, okay.
So but
Maybe waiting
that
a
doesn't
little.
mean you guys can't meet. It just means I can't be.
Wouldn't be the same. Maybe waiting a little bit longer, and can I suggest like having a share meeting? Like Roxy would share her stuff, but we would all come up with ideas. Like come maybe prepared to share a couple things.
I think that sounds
Like a
great.
best practices.
Mhm. Sounds great. When does the reading end?
24th?
Yes. Yeah, 24th.
24th was the last official day, although
Right.
they did send out a survey asking if people would be willing to work both before and after and longer hours. And
Well, we
they're
could we could either try for like the 25th, which is a Thursday, but you all may be tired from grading. So I'm thinking sometime during the week of the 29th, maybe the 29th or 30th. That's a Monday or a Tuesday.
So that's when the ASA, so that's when the ASA AMATIC got rescheduled to
Oh, okay.
just those 2 days. So, but I don't have to be there the whole time, but I don't know which time slot I'm in on that one.
Should we
I
try?
might be using my Zoom, so maybe another day would be good.
Why don't we go in? You want to try July 1st?
That's good for me.
That works for me.
Wednesday, July 1st, or?
I'm going to pencil you in.
All right.
could we do maybe an hour later? Because if it makes, I have an online APSI that goes from 9 to 12 that
So
morning.
do 4 p.m. in the afternoon?
Would that work for everybody? Just an hour later?
That would work for me. Okay, why don't we say July 1st at 4 p.m.
Eastern.
And that'll be our best practices meeting.
Sounds good. The only thing
Okay.
on my calendar is I have to give my dog his trifexis that day. So I
There
think
you
I can
go.
manage.
We'll remind you.
I anticipate a question coming up about that. Sort of like the chondroitin and
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
All right.
Well,
Good to
thank
see
you,
everybody.
thank you, everyone. See you all July 1st, if not sooner, somewhere.
Chris, are you
Okay.
are you participating in the reading at all?
I'm not going to read. No.
And you're not, obviously you're not needed to run around and organize all the boxes.
Yes, but don't worry. I may be watching you virtually.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
Pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm going to miss seeing everybody this year.
Well, have fun with the reading.
Have
Yep.
fun.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.